Hey, I'm Stephanie, and today we're doing a little bit of cosmetic contour treasure hunting. On the left side of my face is the Kevyn Aucoin Contrast Stick in the shade Shape, and on the right side, Westman Atelier's Face Trace Contour Stick in the color Biscuit. Both are luxury cream contour sticks promising that sculpted yet still natural looking cheekbone. This is part of my Panning for Gold series, where I test two nearly identical products for a few weeks to see which one is pure gold and which one's just dirt. I wear them with the same makeup, in the same light, in the same climate. I apply them the same way. So it's basically like a controlled scientific study if science involved contouring your face and then taking too many selfies. My goal is to find the gold nuggets that actually earn a permanent place in my collection. But what's gold to me might be gravel to you. So take notes, argue with me in the comments, and tell me which side you would pan for. First, let's take a look at the packaging. And to be honest, this isn't really a fair comparison because I only have the mini of the Westman Atelier stick. And although it does feel fairly luxurious for a mini, it's not nearly as hefty as the Kevyn Aucoin stick. But the Westman Atelier full-size blush does come in similar packaging to the full-size contour stick, and I do happen to have one of those here. And when I compare these two components, both feel very luxurious. Both have a magnetic cap, both are decently weighty in the hand, and although the Kevyn Aucoin component does feel a little heavier, if you're a packaging junkie, both are really nice, so I don't think that you'll be disappointed either way. Let's get into the swatches because they clearly demonstrate how these two products work on the face too. The colors are very similar, especially when they're sheared out, which is the way they're typically worn on the face. Both Kevyn Aucoin's Shape and Westman Atelier's Biscuit have a light depth and are a taupe color that can function to create a realistic illusion of shadow on a skin tone like mine, which is light neutral, leaning ever so slightly golden. The undertones differ though. The Westman Atelier Biscuit is more neutral, while the Kevyn Aucoin Shape has a slightly cooler undertone, almost with a hint of lavender to it. Both colors worked equally well on me, which is understandable seeing how close they are in the swatches. Just for comparison, I also have the Kevyn Aucoin stick in the shade Tone, and I originally bought this one first, but I was buying online, and anyone who has ever tried to color match online knows how tricky it can be, and this is just the wrong shade for me. I can theoretically make it work as a bronzer, but I already have cream bronzers with undertones that I think are a better match for me, so I think I'm going to be giving this one away to a friend. But now back to the two main contenders. When we look at the heavier swatches, we can see the difference in the finish of these two products pretty clearly. The Kevyn Aucoin Contrast Stick has a more radiant formula, while the Westman Atelier finish is more matte, almost a powder finish. The Kevyn Aucoin formula's radiance doesn't come from visible shimmer particles though. It seems to come purely from its emollients, and it's a little easier to spread and blend due to that fact. This could be a real pro for people with drier skin types who have difficulty blending products and who prefer a glowier finish in general. The Westman Atelier Face Trace Contour Stick's more matte finish isn't quite as easy to blend, but that doesn't mean that it's hard either. It just takes a little bit more time than its competition in the Kevyn Aucoin. But this actually has its advantages in certain contexts as well. For example, it's a little easier to control because it doesn't blend as easily. So that means it's going to stay where you put it. So if you ever struggle with placement, this might be a better option. Speaking of placement, a few of you have asked which brushes I use for contouring, so let's talk tools for a second. On my nose, my all-time favorite brush is the BOBBI Brown Touch-Up brush. Sadly, this has been discontinued, which feels personally rude, but I did go hunting through my collection to find a few close matches. And the most similar one that I found was the rèphr 28 brush. It's about the same thickness, and it is also made with goat hair, though the bristles are a touch longer and a bit more flexible, so I have to use a lighter hand with it to keep control. The SONIA G Builder brush from the Lotus collection is a little bit closer to the stiffness of the BOBBI Brown, but it is just slightly thicker, which can result in a broader application if I'm not careful. When my favorites are dirty, I'll often grab the KVD 40 brush, and it's technically a concealer brush, but it's tapered enough at the top to draw a nice clean line down the sides of my nose. For the rest of my face, I tend to reach for the larger version, which is the KVD number 5 brush. It's also tapered, so it fits beautifully underneath the cheekbone, and I can use the flat side of it here to blend contour on the bigger planes of my face, like the forehead or my jaw. And if I really want to carve that jawline, then I reach for the e.l.f. contouring brush. brush. This is fantastic. It is long, it is completely flat, and it does an impressive job of chiseling. So those are my go-tos for contour, and they all work equally well with both of these formulas. Talking about brushes like this reminds me about how so much of beauty is just about sculpting. We're constantly shaping light and shadow and perception, whether that's with contour or brows or even the camera angle that we choose. And lately I've been thinking about how that shaping connects to the bigger question of where makeup ends and modification begins. Why we celebrate one kind of transformation but often judge another. And I've actually explored that idea in more detail in this week's Adagio tape over on Patreon. It's a members-only reflection about the curious line between cosmetics and cosmetic procedures and why that line seems to move depending on who's crossing it and when. So if you like the slightly more philosophical side of these videos, then that one's for you. I'll link it here and in the show notes. But now back to the formulas. When creating a contour on the face, we're trying to throw it into shadow, which means that matte finishes usually help to support that illusion a little bit better because they're not reflecting light. So if you have a more oily skin type, have difficulty placing products correctly, something that's particularly important for contouring, and you really want to support the illusion of shadow on your face, the Westman Atelier formula might be better for you due to the matte finish. After a couple of months of testing, it feels like I have been sifting through riverbeds with tweezers. Some days the Kevyn Aucoin shimmered brighter, other days the Westman Atelier felt sturdier. Proof that even in beauty, the gold changes depending on the light. I truly enjoy both of these products, and I would give the title of Gold Nugget to each of them. They're both equally good, they're just a little different. But if I could only choose one, which would it be? That's tricky, and here's why. I have combination skin. I'm oily through the center of my face and dry around the outskirts, so the more matte Westman Atelier formula works better on my nose, and the more emollient Kevyn Aucoin formula works better on the drier sections around the perimeter. And as much as I really like to contour my nose, sometimes I do struggle with placement. So the Westman Atelier formula is better for me in that context too, especially because the more neutral shade looks a little bit more natural on my skin tone in the center of my face, which naturally gets more light in all directions because it literally sticks out of my face. But I don't feel like I struggle with placing contour under my cheekbones or my jawline, meaning that the Kevyn Aucoin formula is best for me in those areas, especially because my skin is drier there and since shadows are normally a little bit more prominent there naturally. So the slightly cooler, more lavender rosiness of the shade Shape is a boon there too. So ideally, I would use the Westman Atelier on my nose and the Kevyn Aucoin to frame my face, and then I would have the best of both worlds. Having it in two different components, though, can be a little annoying for travel, so what I think I'm going to do is depot these into a custom palette, because I've been thinking a lot about what it means to customize rather than consume. There's a certain kind of luxury in taking what already works and then reshaping it to fit my life even better. It's slower, it's more deliberate, and that's what Adagio is all about. Just in case you're new here, we talk a lot about the Adagio mindset on my channel because I'm a musician, and in music, the word Adagio means slow and with feeling. And that's how I'm trying to relate to my stuff nowadays. I really love luxury makeup, and for a while, I kept buying more and more in an attempt to find better and better products. But I'm learning that perfect is a moving target, and I can often make what I already have better by making it more my own. I think we often chase new because it's easier than optimizing what we already own. But when I started treating my collection more like the toolkit it used to be when I first started and less like a museum of fancy things, it began to feel more personal. And that has really calmed my urge to shop for the next best product all the time. The best makeup routine isn't about having everything. I'm finding it's about refining what we do have and being more intentional about what we choose to add, because that's when it really starts to feel more like me. Now, you might have seen that the brand m.PH recently released an underpainting palette, and the format of that looks really good. It looks like something that would be very useful to me, at least in theory, but if I already have beautiful contours and color corrector shades that work really well for me in color and formula, I feel like it just makes more sense for me to create my own custom palette than to take a risk on a new product where the colors and the formulas might not be as good of a match for me. Because I want my makeup collection to be a kit of the best possible products for me. And if I already have great things right here, the best way to add value to my collection is to put them into a format that will make them even more useful to me, not buy yet another separate product. Plus, I was putting this palette into my monthly makeup capsule all summer. It's from Makeup Forever, but it originally held a bunch of foundations on this side and a bunch of blushes on this side, but I found that the foundation formula just didn't really jive well with my skin. So I repotted all of those and I gave them away. And then I started refilling the empty pans with some of my favorite individual products to make a custom palette. And I find I get so much more use out of these individual products when they're in a convenient format like this. So I am going to make my own custom version of that m.PH underpainting palette with these and a couple of my other favorite products. So if you'd like to watch that, then make sure to subscribe and like and comment. If you don't have much to say, maybe you can just leave a flower emoji, because the more you engage with this video, the more likely you are to see that one. And if philosophical takes on beauty make your brain do jazz hands, then you might enjoy a discussion about how the world reacts when we don't shape our faces in the form of a get ready with me. It's all about what happened when Pamela Anderson had her bare-faced moment and what it said about beauty, aging, and authenticity. So I'll link that right here. Thanks for hanging out, and to all of my patrons and channel members, including my Adagio angels, for making content like this possible. I hope we can all remember that even stumbling can be a form of moving forward. So let's stumble in style.